Hi, I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. This is the Stan Perfex Thumb Blackout Edition. So it's black. So it's like the Perfex, but black. Now, it's got a new feature which I want to show you, and one of the reasons I'm going to show you this is because I didn't know about it. So I didn't know about it, so I got taken by surprise, and I'm going to tell you that story, how that happens. And hopefully we're going to rip this thing apart so I can show you what it's like inside. It comes with a bigger knurl, but it should come with a fourth finger, so I'm going to have to check that. Comes with extension posts. That's interesting. So what's different with this, it's got this little thing here, right? And now what they call this is a string saver. And what it's for is you can hook it onto your D loop and it should sit on your D loop. So let's grab a D loop. D loop, finger saver, it should be able to sit there like so without falling off, right? It actually does it. I know I've done this before on a finger thing by some other release aid, and the release aid fell off. So that's the purpose of this. It's meant to be easy to load. It's meant to be easy to load. The old Prefex does not have this little thing here. It doesn't have it. And I'm like, okay, how does this work? So now what happened was, I've sold literally not many of these, but I sold one, and the customer brought it back to me with this little thing here being pushed way out here. So it was stuck. It was pushed out 90 degrees, and he said it's meant to be an anti-dry fire thing to stop you dry firing it. Now this is the little post here that screws into there to disactivate the thumb, so you can't shoot the release, and basically it's safe to draw. So he thought, the customer thought, that he could just draw it back and test pulling back his bow. But what happened was the D-loop pulled through this little black thing, and the little black thing became jammed. Okay, so he said, well, that's a manufacturer's defect. It's not fit for purpose. I want my money back. And I'm like, oh, is that what it is? It's an anti-dry fire device. So I looked up reviews. I looked up reviews while the customer's sitting there, and probably he's getting pissed off, right? I'm going to cut to the thing. I gave him his money back, right? So if you want to know, I gave him his money back, and you can discuss whether that's the right thing to do or not. I ripped it apart first, this release, and I looked for reviews because I didn't know what it was, this little black thing. I found a guy who had this similar problem in America 3 days before, and no one basically had a solution to it. So I'm like, well, Stan hadn't responded. There was some things there about it, but there was really nothing about it. So I didn't know what this was, but customers telling me it's an anti-dry fire device. It is not an anti-dry fire device. This black thing is not anti-dry fire. It's made out of light aluminium. It's designed to hold the string. So if you pull back the D-loop at that angle, the release aid, the D-loop's going to pull straight through that hook and jam. Okay, it's going to jam, and when it jams, basically what I did is I pushed this back on a bench with wood. I pushed this back into place, but then the spring doesn't activate. All right, so you can see this is on a spring. So you can see this little black thing here. I'll just activate this. Right, so you can see this little black thing here is on a spring, right? So it's on a spring. So the spring inside had basically popped off because it had pushed too far forward. So I take apart this release aid through these little things here. Now my vision is not good up close. I've got perfect vision like there, that far away from my face, but up close, it's blurry to me. So I need glasses. I don't have my glasses there to work on this, right? And inside here, there's all little springs. So I'm going to show you what it looks like inside, because we spent the customer came in at 3 o'clock, which is our closing time, came in, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So now, if you're a shop, and I've got lots of shops who view it, I'm going to say the best thing to do when you have this, and I've had a shop for 30 years, but I try and look after customers. The best thing to do is say, leave it with me and I'll talk to the manufacturer. The best thing to do, because you haven't done any research when you have a failure. You don't know what it is. You're like, and you're just making a jump decision. Now my gut feeling was Stan was going to tell me to go run and jump with this and going to say it's user fault. When I first saw it, I'm like, so I've got to see what happened inside it. So I took this release out apart to see what was inside and see if this was an anti-dry fire device. That's why I took it apart. Now that could be getting rid of my Stan warranty, and maybe I would have been best to send it straight back to the Stan, but I'm in Australia and Stan's in Stan in America, and right. So overall, I like the release aid, but it cost $378, I think the customer paid for it. I didn't have any others in stock. There was no others in Australia that I could find, and there was none in Europe. This was the last one. So like there's a shortage at the moment on release aids. They're hard to get. So customer said, well, I want my money back. And I thought, well, we're going to have this whole, Australia has consumer law where you go to consumer affairs, they write to you, you got to write back. And I figured, well, I can sell this release aid off secondhand once it's fixed, right? Rather than go through things. But I said to the customer, look, if you get another one of these, this is not covered in future because this Stan won't warranty this. And he said, no, I won't be getting another one of these releases. So I'm going to take this apart so you can see what it looks like inside. So you needed this little screwdriver to rip it apart. You can see how small the screws are. They're like tiny threads. And it's possible I lost one. So it's definitely possible we lost one. Now when you're ripping apart a release aid, make sure you've got a clear area to work on. We were just working on a tabletop where we pack stuff, and it wasn't ideal, which is why you should never do stuff in front of the customer. You should have a clear bench. I should have glasses. When you're pulling apart a release aid, you want good light. Now I also needed this Allen key here, whatever size that was, which was 3/32. So you've got to loosen off this as well, which is the adjustment screw. So I've taken out the 3 screws, 1, 2, 3. I feel like there should be more. But anyway, I've ripped out 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply this apart. Now when I did it first off, it was very, very tight. And I had to use a little flathead screwdriver to kind of wedge these 2 joints together, so apart, because it was very, very tight. So we're going to open this and then you can have a look what it's like inside. So this is the inside of the Stan. Now this little thing here was the thing that broke, this little metal thing. You can see this clearly, this little black thing here clearly cannot hold a string. There's not enough weight to it. There's a little spring in here which holds it in place, you can see there, and that's what basically became unhooked. Now in here you can see how this release aid works. You have a tension thing here, which little spring on the end of it, an adjustment screw here, and this little screw here adjusts how much travel it has before it fires. Now this little spring here activates this little lever here, which moves backwards and forwards. Now it's not, I'm guessing that this post here needs to go on there, so this hooks onto there, because that's the part of this release aid which is not working at the moment. So I'm going to try and take this off and fit it in there. I'm just sort of checking to make sure that's where I think it goes, and then hopefully this release aid will work again. But when you pull these apart, like these little springs here, that little spring there, it's really, really fiddly to get these things hooked on. And with better light, like I can see clearly in this light how this works. But in my shop that I work under fluorescent lights, it's very, very hard to work. Now you can see the washers here. This makes it move smoothly, which is why you've got such a fine quality on this release aid. But overall, it's a nice release aid. I wouldn't recommend pulling a release aid apart. I don't know how long it takes Stan and Vlasky to assemble one of these, but I'm sure they're going to be much faster than us. And if you're in America, I would fully suggest sending it back to the factory to have it worked on, just because it's so much easier. I'm guessing this pin goes in there. Okay, so I've got the spring onto here, and I'm taking out this bolt, this spring, because I'll put this in after, and this bolt I'll put in after as well. So with that, I'm going to put this back together. Now, how long did that take me to do? It took me about, I've got glasses on now, which helped immensely. Probably took me, you can see the hole there at the back. This is all together, it's all looking good. Probably took me 10 minutes to do. And we'll put the screws in, and this hopefully will all work. Okay, so I've got the stand back together. You can see it, so it's cocked, triggers, activates, locks, it all works. I'm going to say it all works. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work. And this little black thing now, the spring's off it. So I've spent about 15 to 20 minutes so far during this video to try and put this, you can see the little black thing here, now it's off because the spring's not on there. Just like so disappointing. And I'm not disappointed in the release aid, it's just the whole thing is like little fine things to put it all back together, and then you miss a little spring, and it's like, this is why you're better to send the stuff back to the factory. Like, you probably could do this, right? And I could probably do this, but it might be 5 minutes, it might be 2 hours for me. And at 2 hours, I'm like, send this back to Stanislavski, put a note and say, the person did this, can you please fix it? Stan's probably, I don't know what Stan's going to do. Look, I might not even get this release aid back, right? I've sent a Stanislavski back before and never came back. And I don't know if that was Stanislavski or the distributor I sent it to, but it never came back. But the time it takes to fix a release aid, like it kind of, I'm going, look, this feels good now. This is all working, but, oh, this is working now. It's weird. See, it was working. It was working a second ago. But you just better, in my view, you better send it back and just say, fix it, please. Because, like, if you got a couple of hours to work on something, then work on it. But to me, send it back to the factory. It's going to cost me, I don't know how much worth of postage, and that much postage back, and then it's done. So I'm Stephen Hand. That was the insides of a Stan Perfex. That's not what to do. Like this thing here, not a huge fan of how that worked or how it was meant to work. Bit disappointing, really. That I was hoping that it would just all be perfect, but obviously it's not. Kind of feels good. I kind of felt like I had it, but I didn't. Anyway, I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching. Bye.